Good evening and welcome to The Law of the People and Governance here on Spectrum Television. This is a program that talks about government policies and of course features socio-political issues and of course addresses the needs of the people, explains government policies better to the people and gets feedback from the people to the government. My name is Rachel David White. Today on the program we'll take a look at some of the trending reports we have today in Nigeria, and one of that is concerning the National Association of Resident Doctors that have called for a total and indefinite strike. Of course, the association revealed that in a terror statement made available to journalists yesterday evening, and the demands of the resident doctors included a quick payment of the 2023 MRTF, prompt release of their circular on 141 replacement, and of course payment of skipping arrears. The list also mentioned the upward review of CONMES in accordance with complete salary restoration to the 2014 value of CONMES as well, and the payment of the arrears of the consequential adjustment of a minimum to the omitted doctors, and the reversal of MDCN's downgrading of the membership certificate. Other demands they made are the payment of MRTF, new hazard allowance, skipping and implementation of corrected comments in state tertiary health institutions, and the payment of all the omitted hazard allowances arrears. And the strike comes after the association on July 5th issued a 2-week ultimatum to the federal government for the implementation of all its demands. And in an attempt to avert the strike, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajuddin Abbas, on Monday held deliberations with the leadership of NARD behind closed doors. And following the private talks, Abbas promised to meet with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to avert the industrial action of the resident doctors, and announced the setup of an ad hoc committee to meet with all the stakeholders and address the matter. And the Speaker also appealed to NARD to give the House leadership a 2-week period to find solutions to the issues raised. Meanwhile, in the midst of the strike, Nigeria Labour Congress plans nationwide strike on August 2nd, 2023. And despite previous court order, the Nigeria Labour Congress is gearing up for a nationwide strike that is set to commence, of course, on August 2nd. As per reliable information obtained, says despite a court order that previously prohibited the Congress from going on strike in June, the NLC maintained that it could not stand idly by while Nigerians continued to endure the hardships resulting from the removal of petrol subsidies. In June, the Tinubu administration took the organized labor to court to prevent a nationwide strike after the initial removal of subsidy on premium motor spirit, commonly known as petrol. Although the government established a committee to engage with the organized labor, officials from the Trade Union Congress and, of course, the NLC expressed dissatisfaction and said that the committee had not effectively communicated with them. Well, Hakim Ambali, the national treasurer for the NLC, confirmed that they issued a 7-day ultimatum to the federal government for concluding all negotiations with labor, and failure to do so would result in industrial action. While the NLC's national president, Joe Ajaro, has not yet issued an official statement or responded to the inquiries on the matter. And of course, further details on the NLC's plan will be communicated to the public shortly, and of course that is in accordance to another national official as well. Okay, so talking about the strike now, this is something we had seen earlier when the petrol subsidy was removed in June, and of course what we saw was a closed-door meeting with Joe Ajaro and some of the NLC top officials, and then they came out without saying a word. And of course, you know, as the tradition is, everything was calm. There was no strike any longer, and just a few months after, we're seeing this emerge again. What do you think? Do you think there's going to be another closed door? I'd like to call that meeting a shut-up meeting that will just shut them up for another period of time until they emerge again. So a quick one away from that, let's take a look at another report that we'll be looking at today, going to the House of Reps. Yesterday, the House of Reps directed the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission to prevail on distribution companies to stop the estimated billing of electricity consumers across the country. The House also urged NERC to sanction the DISCOs for their poor supply of power to consumers and devise means of working out compensation packages for individuals, communities, private and public entities for the investment in the distribution network. And this is just as the House further charged the Committee on Power, when constituted, because it hasn't been constituted yet, to interfere with NERC and DISCOs to address all issues making effective distribution of power difficult in the country. And this followed the adoption of a motion by Afupe Maruf, a member representing Abeokuta South Federal Constituency of Ogun State, calling on the regulator to address challenges faced by electricity consumers. Well, in his motion, Maruf argued that the 11 DISCOs across the country have continued to render abysmal poor services to consumers, contrary to the Electricity Act 2023. And he described as worrisome for the fact that consumers pay for their meters, cables, and transformers, yet they are disconnected at will by DISCOs. Also coming to talk about electricity, I think that if this is implemented, the ad hoc committee has been set up, and of course it's a good thing for the Senate to even notice that people actually do pay for the services and don't get it. So we'll also take a look at that, but let's also check another report that we'll be talking today. Yesterday there was a drama as operatives of the Department of State Services and the officials of the Ikoyi Correctional Center clashed at the Federal High Court in Lagos over who was to take the suspended governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, into custody. Shortly after Emefiele was granted bail by Justice Nicholas Owebo and the suit was adjourned till November 14th, some DSS operatives were seen in strategic locations and close to the court entrance. Justice Owebo had yesterday granted bail in a sum of 20 million naira to Emefiele, who was charged with illegal possession of firearms. And of course, the judge agreed with the submission of the defense counsel on the grounds that the defense, or the offense rather, for which the defendant was charged was quite bailable. And the court held that bail can only be denied where any of the circumstances set out in Section 162 of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act was established. The court also held that the prosecution had not furnished such circumstances before the court. And the court consequently granted bail to the defendant in the sum of 20 million naira with one surety in like sum. Well, the court held that the surety must depose to an affidavit of means and have a landed property as well. And he directed that the defendant be remanded in the custody of the Correctional Service pending perfection of bail. Well, in the midst of this, the DSS laid siege to the court premises to rearrest him. And of course, operatives of the Ikoyi prison resisted them, which led to an altercation and outbreak of fisticuffs. Well, in response to that, Emefiele's lawyer, Barrister Kingdom Okere, accused the government of unfairly targeting the suspended governor due to his Salvan ethnic background. And he contrasted the treatment of Emefiele with lack of action against figures like Asari Dokubo, who has publicly brandished weapons and, of course, threatened violence against the Igbo people of the southeast. The lawyer also argued that while the DSS had charged Emefiele for allegedly possessing a firearm. They have failed to arrest well-known militants and bandits openly carrying arms. And he suggested that the charges against the Emefiele are disproportionate and hypocritical compared to the impunity enjoyed by armed groups in other regions. Okere also concluded that the unequal application of the law indicates ethnic bias. According to him, it is because Emefiele is from the South and bears an Igbo name. Therefore, he must be persecuted. That's a question he raised, and he reiterated that Nigeria is a diverse country and such selective persecution based on ethnicity is unacceptable. So those were the issues on ground. And also the NBA president had also issued a statement, and of course he had in totality condemned that action that took place at the Lagos State Federal High Court yesterday. So we'll go on a short break. When we come right back, we'll talk about the stories better, and our guests will be here to extract the stories with us today. So do stay tuned. We'll be right back.
I said you be careful. I said you have the right. I'm talking about your right.
I won't kill again. The one you kill, don't deny. The one you go for force. The one that kill, don't deny. Where is that? Who is that?
What is the problem?
I don't understand.
So they will not allow you to do it at this time.
You cannot let this.
I said you be careful. I said you have the right. I'm talking about your right.
I won't kill again. The one you kill, don't deny.
What is the problem?
I don't understand.
So they will not allow you to do it at this time.
All right, welcome back to the program, The Law of the People and Governance, here on Spectrum Television. Already we looked at the reports that we will be x-raying today and going to the Senate concerning the NERC, and of course also talking about the issue of Godwin Emefiele and the DSS, and of course the men of Ikoyi prison as well, and of course the NART strike and NLC planning to join the strike as well. So here we are about to, of course, do justice to this report. So my guest is here live in the studio, being joined by Paulinus Peter, socio-political analyst. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure having you on the show as well. Okay, so let's quickly get to the first report we have, the strike, of course, that has been embarked upon by the National Association of Resident Doctors in Nigeria. And of course, NLC is also threatening to begin another strike on August 2nd. Now, before now, remember that immediately after President Bola Ahmed Tinubu had announced that subsidy on petrol is removed, and that had already cost Nigerians, you know, an unexpected hardship and jerk into hardship, I must say. So it wasn't planned for. And then this had made NLC, TUC and other unions to threaten to embark upon a strike, which would have mean a total shutdown of the economy in Nigeria. And then what we saw was a meeting, closed doors, with the NLC and the federal government. And of course, when they came out, I can't remember any word from the NLC president telling the public, but what we saw was a total change in plan. The TUC, the NLC, everybody backed out of the strike. And then I like to call that meeting, as usual, a shut-up meeting. So that was a shut-up meeting to make them stand still and, of course, down every planned strike. And now we are seeing the NLC want to follow NARD. Okay, NARD is already on strike, and NLC wants to begin strike by August 2nd. Now the question is, what do you expect, or what should Nigerians expect?
Well, for me, the strike as planned by the NLC, for me, is totally uncalled for. Uncalled for in the sense that if we should ask ourselves as Nigerians, over the years, this same labor body has been leading us on strikes. So at the end of the strikes, at the end of every strike, season, who has been the beneficiary? Are they the Nigerians people or the labor leaders? If you ask me, I would say the labor leaders.
In what way?
Well, let's go back history lane a little bit. Adams Oshimole, the senator now, was once the president of the NLC, and he was known for leading Nigerians on strikes and all that. At the end of the day, he was rewarded with a governorship of Edo State.
Okay, so he didn't merit the position.
Thereafter, Adams has not talking about any strikes action anymore. And that's to say there is something that the labor leaders know and want that are not in the best interest of the citizens. So Nigerians should wake up and realize who is fighting for them and who is not fighting for them. So for me, the strikes is not necessary. It's uncalled for. For me, I believe that these administrations should be given a chance.
Okay, let me ask a question. I know that, your own assertion is that the strike is uncalled for.
Definitely.
But let's say a strike action begins, or, okay, let me put it this way. Don't you think that even if the NLC threatens strike, the government decides to call them as usual, because we've seen it over the years, it has happened again and again and again, into closed doors meetings that will make them come out and just keep quiet and nothing happens again. The strike action is over, and then the next few days you see them come out again to tell us that government has not met their demands.
That's exactly the point I'm trying to drive home. That at the end of every strike action, the labor leaders has always been the beneficiary of the strike actions. In other words, they are not fighting for the people. They are after their interests. Are you there? They are after their interests. They are after what they can get out of the system. They are after how they can get the attention of the political leaders and not actually the welfare of the people. So Nigerians should not be glad. Nigerians should not sit down and say we have the people that are fighting for us and all that. At the end of the day, nothing good will come out, nothing tangible, nothing beneficiary to the Nigerian people will be obtained. So why allow such thing to happen? It does not do any good to the citizens. It's high time citizens should understand this. It's high time citizens should understand the tricks. What that are going on in the system, and they stand their ground and resist such tricks, because at the end of the day, it has never been, and it will never be in their interest. So why allow such things to happen? For me, the strike is totally uncalled for. It's not necessary, because nothing so much will change in the direction that will favor the common people. So to that extent, I'm still of the view that the government should be allowed a chance.
Okay.
The government should be allowed to fix what they should fix up. I am not a spokesperson for the government, but I don't think we will be fair as Nigerians if we expect the government that is not up to 3 months to do magic. No, life is procedural.
You're towing the path of Adams Oshimole when he says that the government, Tinubu-led administration, of course, the federal government are not magicians to perform magic.
Well, away from what the Adams Oshimole said, I strongly believe for you to get a desired product, there is always a process to follow. There is always some. And when you talk about processes, some efforts and sacrifices are expected. So while we are looking forward to having a good economy and that, we should also be ready to bear with the processes or the sacrifices that comes with such and expectations. So a chance should be given to the government to do what is right. Nigerians should avoid the temptation of allowing some people, to make capital out of it. out of what the government is trying to do. Some people are coming to say, look, we are fighting for you, we are fighting in your interest. Then at the end of the day, they will end up enriching themselves at the expense of the very people. The people, the citizens, should not allow that. And by the time they know that the masses, they know the tricks, they have come to understood it, then everyone would maintain his or her peace. That's my take.
Okay, now the resident doctors have already embarked upon an indefinite strike, and they have placed their demands in front of the government and say, this is what we want you to do for us. And this is not like a new demand, it's been there over time. And then, of course, the government have been struggling to see how they meet. But what is the effect of this? Because everything in the state is, at least for the good of the common man who cannot afford to travel out for medical treatment. So what is the effect of that night strike on Nigeria?
Well, the effect has always been the same, that it's only the common people that will suffer. The government, to be very fair to them, I don't see the government or government officials patronizing the Nigerian hospitals. Neither are the doctors themselves. So for me, a government
I don't get when you say neither are the doctors themselves.
Well, for me, I like being very realistic. I like being objective in my views and in my insinuations. You know, we are all Nigerians. We know what is obtainable in the country, in the society. Hardly will you see somebody at a bit kind of doing well and all that, that will patronize the public health sector. So I'm talking about the doctors going on strike for a government that has not yet settled, a government that is yet to, you know, have ministers in place. So what is the strike for? For me, I still believe the whole thing is political, the whole thing is selfish.
Political in what manner?
Well, when we talk about politics, it's all about interests. It's all about what he's trying to get.
Okay, let me say something.
At the expense. Don't forget, I want you to underscore my
Okay,
point.
go ahead.
At the expense of the common people. These matters have been there over time. So why the strike actions now?
Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
I have my need as a doctor. Over time, the past administration hasn't met my need. Or let me use you. You have your needs and they haven't met your needs. And then a new administration comes in and you're still presenting your needs and they're not giving you a proper face, okay, they're not listening to you, maybe. And then you decide to strike to show them that you're serious. This thing has been there over time. What else do you expect?
Well, for me, I feel that timing is a factor in everything. That is how you can do.
So the timing is wrong.
The timing is completely wrong. That's how you can do a good thing in the wrong time. And there's this balance that doing a good thing in the wrong time and in the wrong way makes that thing wrong, no matter the good motives and intentions behind it. So the doctors coming to embark on strike at this point in time in a government that has not settled, in a government that do not have ministers, people that could be held responsible for each ministries and departments of government, then for me, I see that as not being sincere. So the problems of Nigeria and our system has been that of insincerity of purpose. The doctors, they know that without having a substantial minister or somebody that could be held responsible, somebody they could directly talk to, or somebody that could serve as an interface between the government and the doctors, there is no how they will get a listening ear, not to talk of having their demands met. So having understood that, and you still want to go ahead to do strikes, for me, it's marks of insincerity of purpose. And that has been the problem of the Nigerian state. Lack of sincerity of purpose, whether on the part of the government and on the part of the citizens. And that has been a problem. And until we change this mindset as citizens, until we change this perspective, then we'll begin to have this whole of problems, this whole of things not working the way it should be, because the people that are saddled with the responsibilities of providing services in one form or the other are not sincere. So until we get the question of lack of sincerity right, then certain people will still be taking things for granted and making some capital out of it at the expense of the very common people. And don't forget, they will always come up to say, we are fighting for the masses and what have you, using that as a kind of a cover-up to get the attention of, and it's quite unfortunate.
Okay, thank you so much, Paulinus Peter. Let's move away from that and get to the next report, talking about the House of Reps. Yesterday, they directed the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission to prevail the distribution companies to stop the estimated billing of electricity consumers across the country. And they also went ahead to urge the NERC to sanction the discos for their poor supply of power to electricity consumers in Nigeria. What do you have to say about that?
Well, if only they will take a step further of ensuring that...
Of course, they are supposed to set up an ad hoc committee to monitor that or to...
Well, let me tell you what, the problem of the Nigerian system is not because the leaders or the citizens are ignorant of what is wrong in the system.
So you're talking about willpower now?
Yeah, of course the willpower is there, and another thing is the attitude of the people. You see, Nigerian state is one system that is characterized, you know, by corruptions. The people, the government, do not want things to work all right.
How?
I know while I'm saying this, I have had a privilege to be a manager of a firm where you have to interrupt or interface with government agencies. And I will tell you from that background that these government agencies, they don't want the citizens to do the right thing. That's the system. And coming to talk about public life, I've also had the privilege to serve as a supervisor in government. The people do not want the right things to be done. You see, when you talk about unestimated billing, it's one system or practice that breeds corruption.
In what way?
Well, a situation whereby you don't know, you as an individual, you don't know how much of power you consume, then somebody will sit down somewhere having a need of certain amount of money, and that will become your rates. That becomes your rate. That's the point I'm making, and that's what is happening in the system. Somebody will just come to you, like, look, what you consumed last month is 200,000, and you have no say on that. So the best way to get out of this is for every household, every user of power to be properly metered, and that will create a system of accountability where every stakeholder involved will understand what is happening. But unfortunately, again, the Nigerian state does not want that to happen. Just like what is obtainable in every sector of the economy. And don't forget to every malpractice or sharp practices that happen, there are beneficiaries somewhere. So that call for me is long overdue. And that's why I'm saying that the National Assembly should take a step further, not just to someone, not just to one, but they should set an ad hoc committee, as you said, and follow it up thoroughly, and follow it up and ensure the right thing is done. And that would take us to the point of implementation, where government will not just come up with policies, but they should ensure a proper scrutiny and supervision of such policies in order for the predetermined outcome of such policies to be achieved and obtained. And until we come to that level in our national life, then corruption and sharp practices will still become the order of the day, and there are people that are benefiting from such sharp practices at the expense of the people. And unfortunately, again, the people feel less concerned. They feel it's none of their business. They don't take interest. They don't ask questions. There's no accountability, and that is quite unfortunate.
Okay, so talking about the Committee on Power that will be set up by the National Assembly, they have actually charged that committee to interface with NERC and discuss to address issues making effective distribution of power, of course, difficult in the country. Let's say that eventually happens. Does this mean, how do I put it, freedom to, lack of power, electricity supply? Because they have addressed a very strong issue here that should make every other Nigerian happy. The issue of having to pay for what you don't consume.
Okay, for me, I'm one person that does not really, celebrate government policy because, or policy pronouncement or policy statement, because I know for a policy to have a desired outcome, there must be, a level or a phase that you call policy performance. And it is at that level that I feel if the policy is successful or not. So I am not a Nigerian that because of the fact that the National Assembly
has
announced, then I now feel that the problem is over. That has been the ban over underdevelopment.
But you can agree that this is a step.
Well, it's a step. It's a step, but what we need as a country is a step. Every government, every administration has always been taking a step. But what we need as a country for things to work, we need more than a step. We need some set of actions. We need policy performance. We need implementations of policies. We need evaluation of policies. So it is not enough to celebrate steps. And that has been why the politicians or the leaders in quote has always taken the people for granted. Because we have a system where some policy statement will be made and the people will be applauding. And that to me is some level of sycophancy and praise singing that do not allow the leaders to work. So we should move away from that and actually get to the level where policies are implemented and evaluated for the desired outcome, because before government will make pronouncement or enact any policy, there should be some set of objectives. What do we want to achieve with such policy statement? What do we want to achieve? What are the problems that these policies are meant to address? And that should be the concerns of Nigerians. And not just to be celebrating what the politicians are saying and we are applauding and that. And they all know that by the time they say good things, by the time they say what the people want to hear, that's the end of it. They will just applaud, they will clap. At the end of the day, nothing happens and it becomes business as usual. So we should move away from that for this country to work and for things to be done the way it should be done.
All right, thank you so much, Paulinus. Back to the people. In case you're just joining us, then this is The Law, the People and Governance here on Spectrum Television, and we are x-raying some of the new policies, of course, that if implemented, of course, will move Nigeria to a greater height. And right about now, we're moving into the next report concerning the suspended former Central Bank of Nigeria governor. I don't know, Paulinus, if you had followed up the report on yesterday's event at the Federal High Court thing in Lagos State, where the drama ensued between the men of the Ikoyi prison and, of course, the DSS as well. There was a video showing us a fight between, I would say, a struggle between the DSS and, of course, the officers of the Ikoyi prison as to who takes back or who becomes in custody of the suspended Central Bank of Nigeria governor. And also in the middle of that, the Godwin Emefiele's lawyer, Okereke, actually said he's seeing politics in that, because he's feeling that Godwin Emefiele was arraigned and, of course, charged and, of course, to be prosecuted simply because he's from the South.
Well, I don't give in to such blackmail or such speculation or sentiment.
But you see politics in his arrest?
Well, if you ask me, I see politics in everything. Let me tell you, there's no how...
Now, you also explain the politics you see in this.
I see politics in everything. There's no how an institution of government will embark on any action when there is no certain interest to be served. So there's no how you can rule the way, politicking completely. But the point is this: what happened was a show. It was a national shame. It was an embarrassment to the Nigerian people. Then my sympathy is not to Emefiele, but to Nigerian nation, because we have often been condoning illegality and lawlessness. And we celebrate it when it favors us, and when it turns against us, it becomes a problem. And that takes us back to what I said earlier, that the problems of the Nigerian state is that of insincerity of purpose. See, we should be mindful of what we do, because as a state actor or as a leader in a public office, whatever you do, your actions and inactions to some extent, set precedents. And that's not the first time such things has happened in our country. And what has been, the behavior, the attitude of the citizens. Most times we seem to celebrate it if it favors us. And all that. And don't forget the man also in question, there was a time that Nigerians were crying for him to also obey some court rulings. I don't know if you understand my point.
I do. So talking about the cash crunch, right?
Of course, yes. Actions of state actors to a very large extent constitute, precedents that it becomes a problem, whether in the next generation or whatever. So whatever we do, we should be mindful of the fact that, we are sowing seeds that one day it will germinate.
Okay, so you call this karma for him.
If we enjoyed it yesterday, then we have no reasons to condemn it today. Otherwise, that will amount to insincerity of purpose, which I, as an individual, stand against such. But having said that, I would say that what happened was quite unfortunate because there's real expectations to every institution of government. A situation where the two institutions of government have to come and be fighting over who should custody one, then brings national embarrassment to the Nigerian state. And these are the things we should avoid. And how do we avoid it? By not only, talking about the rule of law, but adhering strictly to the rule of law. See, until we come to that level whereby we cherish these attributes of whether bureaucracy, where impartiality, impersonality has to characterize the actions and inactions of state actors, then we'll continue to be having this problem. So I don't see the sentiments of where he's coming from or where he's not coming from. It should be played here. But the problem is Nigerians, especially at that leadership level, really obey laws. We have a situation where when somebody assumes a position of leadership, the person attempts to become the law. And that's a problem. A situation where might seems to be right is actually a problem. So the Nigerian state should adhere strictly to the rule of law. The law should govern our conduct in offices and out of offices. The law should determine our behaviors, how we need to behave in every situation of national assignment and what have you. And once that is in place, then our conduct will be termed, whether it is in the military or in anywhere. So that is what we should be emphasizing: adherence to the rule of law, the prevalence of the rule of law in our country, in our society, in our systems. A situation where, an individual will not be dictating what happens, because I believe there is ethics. There is ethics that should govern conduct in every position one might assume. So we should emphasize that. We should preach that. We should adhere to that, and that will take care of all this unnecessary embarrassment that we always face as a nation.
Okay, now, according to reports, now, while that's from Emefiele's lawyer, Kingdom Okere, he says while the DSS is charging Emefiele for allegedly possessing a firearm, other people, like the militants, he even mentioned and cited Asari Dokubo, who, according to him, has brandished weapons, and of course some other persons that are becoming security threats to the nation are owning firearms, guns, cartridges, but then they are not being chased after. So why Emefiele? I think that is where he feels politics came in, and mostly because he is from the south.
Well, I don't want to subscribe to the notion of it's from the south.
But talk about
I want to agree with you that there is a whole lot of at play of politics and that, and it's what we said earlier. Like talking about militants, showcasing firearms and want that, and nobody's asking questions. The citizens are not condemning government. It's not talking about because that person in quote properly is enjoying some level of relationship with the government. Don't forget there will be a time that power is transient. There will be a time that no administration lives forever. There will be a time that a new administration will come in place, and the relationship must have changed, and that becomes a problem. So what is bad is bad. What is illegal is illegal. And we should treat them the way they are. I don't know if you understand my point. So trying to mix up, trying to say it is this, it is that, it's just a way of giving some ethnic or political coloration, or a way of causing confusion in order to divert people's attention from the main issue. I feel it should not be done that way. If a Emefiele is found wanting, it should be tried in accordance with our laws. That's my point. It should be tried in accordance with our laws. But where I'm also having a problem with the DSS, there ought to have been some respect, you know, accorded to the pronouncement of the judiciary and all that. They will have waited for the bail that has been granted to Emefiele to. They will have waited for that process to be completed.
Well, then he was to be remanded by the. He had to go back, you know, to be in custody. But a display of power tussle between the main of the Ikoyi prison and that of the DSS simply showed, I think they didn't keep their houses in order. Or like you said, there must be something interesting.
That's illegality.
Something interesting, maybe a price tag to who gets this man in custody or who is in custody of this
man. Well, it's not far from that, but it's quite unfortunate, because no matter the interest, no matter the intrigues, no matter what is involved, I am of the view that the judiciary pronouncement ought to have been adhered to, ought to have been respected. So for the fact that the DSS and the prison personnel has come to display that level of illegality means they should be called to order. They should be sanctioned in accordance with the law. Otherwise, it will set a precedent that other agencies of government will tend to follow, knowing fully well that when it happened, that there was nothing done against it. I don't know if you understand my point. So government should be able to write above board, you know, meting out disciplines where it is necessary, where it is relevant, and where it is applicable. So at this point, I feel the federal government, you know, shouldn't be neutral. The federal government, whose responsibility it is to ensure the maintenance of law and order, should come out publicly to condemn, and not just to condemn, but to sanction the misbehavior, the indisciplined attitude of the state institutions, to serve as a deterrence to other institutions that may feel that there is no law to be respected, or things could be done anyhow they want and they wish, and that is a very bad name for our country as a nation, for we Nigerians.
Well, talking about the rule of law, the NBA president, Mekau, had actually dropped a statement condemning that fracas that, of course, interface between the DSS and the men of the Ikoyi prison as well. And he said that was, of course, he condemned the alteration that happened between the two agencies, and he added that the NBA remains committed to promotion or protection of the principles of the rule of law and processes as well. Well,
the chairman of the NBA is right, but the challenge has been, and they should always speak out when, you know, occasion demands. They should not be selective in their actions or reactions. And
at what point would you say that they...
Well, I want to believe that when there was even a Supreme Court pronouncement of how the central bank should behave at a point in time, the NBA, you know, that's supposed to be a custodian or the watchdog of the judiciary, I don't remember them saying anything and the rest of it.
Okay, at that point...
Having not said anything does not mean what they said is not right.
Okay.
It's right. But my point has been that there should be that principle of impartiality. There should be that principle, practice of that impersonality, and that...
I don't see being partial here. Now, I remember when the pronouncement was made, and of course the court had ruled that they should coexist. The two currencies should coexist with each other until, of course, when in due time the old notes would, you know, leave the market totally as usual as it used to be. At that point, I don't see where the courts did wrong. Of course, they couldn't have forced it on an
Well, they couldn't have forced. They couldn't have forced. But Emefiele should know that as a Nigerian, whether an individual or corporate citizens, that our laws.
If I get you right, this is you saying this is karma.
No. Well, if you put it that way, but for me, the point I'm making is this: equity. You know, when seeking equity, you should do equity. Do you understand my point? You don't, you know, perform or promote iniquity of some sort today, then tomorrow you'll be talking about equity. That will amount to double standards, and that is the problem of we Nigerians. You know, that double standard, something that we'll celebrate today, then the next hour, if it is not advancing our cause and interest, we will condemn it. A country does not succeed that way. A system does not survive that way. There should be impartiality when it comes to, you know, when it comes to law. There should be equality when it comes to law. There shouldn't be that demarcation or class differences when it comes to obeying law. A law should be something that governs all manner of persons, irrespective of statuses, irrespective of political affiliations, irrespective of positions and titles. And by the time we have that in our country, then we will end up having an egalitarian society where law and order reigns. And until we do that, we'll begin to be having, we'll continue to be having these fracases and this unhealthy display of national embarrassment, which is quite unfortunate, which is quite condemnable, which is not something we should allow to happen. So that has always been my point. It has nothing to do with Emefiele as a person. It has nothing to do with whoever that is involved.
So it's generalized to every leader
but
or every Nigerian.
The law should be respected. That's the point. The law should be respected, irrespective of title, irrespective of positions. And that because government is strengthened, it will always come and go. But what remains is the people and the Nigerian state.
Of course,
so we should cherish that rule of law.
Senator Shehu Sani.
Yes, of course.
All right, thank you so much for coming on the show today, Paulinus Peter. We've been talking to Paulinus Peter, a social political analyst. Welcome. Thank you very
much. It has always been my pleasure. And let me commend your brand once again for doing well, you know. And SpectrumTv is a pride, not just to Akwa Ibom, but to the Nigerian state. And this brand is noted for parading, you know, some fine professionals when it comes to the media profession. So I give it up to you, and I would say kudos.
Thank you so much. All right, back to the people. Thank you so much for staying glued to your TV station. It's been the law of the people and governance here on Spectrum Television. Meanwhile, don't forget to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, SpectrumTv.ng. And also follow us on Twitter at SpectrumTOnline, all as one word. You can as well follow me on Twitter at Rachel White. Have you again tomorrow. Good evening.